If you're a parent, teacher, or school leader, and you're sick and tired of the frustration, anger, and unfair treatment of children at high risk in our public schools, then perhaps it's time for all of us to do something about it. In this podcast, Dr. Amitra Berry brings you tips, tools, strategies, and tactics to build successful solutions while touching, moving, and inspiring all of us to transform our schools so that every child thrives. Here's your host, Dr. Berry.
Hey there, Equity Warriors. Today I welcome an old friend, but it will be a voice that you all know. Today I welcome Dennis Thomas. He's the former Vice President of Strategic Development at Organic Life and founder of DT Global Consulting. With a wealth of experience in business development in the education food service industry, Dennis is passionate about driving growth and innovation and meeting the needs of marginalized children. So join me today as we explore his insights on the state of food service in marginalized communities.
Today's guest discussion is so compelling and in-depth that we couldn't fit it all into our regular episode. But don't worry, you can hear the full uncut interview on our Patreon page. To access this expanded content and support our mission of promoting educational equity, follow the link in the show notes and become a Patreon subscriber. You'll get exclusive access to this eye-opening conversation and much more. And now, back to the interview.
Dennis, thanks for being here with me today.
Glad to be a part of the team.
All right. Well, you know what? I may ask you for more, so be careful what you say. Let's start by something, maybe a pivotal moment in your life. How did you get into the food service industry, and what was it that influenced your decision to launch DT Global Consulting?
Yeah, I appreciate that. I started when I was younger in Virginia, actually, and my mom and dad, we grew up under the poverty belt, so to speak. I thought at times when we were poor, we had more money than most people, but we didn't know that we were getting subsidy from the government. But, young kids, we didn't even know that. My mom drove a school bus for 17 years, as well as worked in the cafeteria. So when I went through the school line, I'm getting fries and pizza more than most students, and I was happy about it. But I think as I grew up, knowing what the world is the way it is, I got into the food service side of the business, knowing that why did one person get a meal more of something versus the other? And then as we continue to get educated in this population, and even more so, we found out that, oh, wait a minute, there's some that's not getting any at all. But why? It was because they didn't have enough money. And so a lot of times I started sharing my meals with everything, with students growing up. And then as you get through adulthood and everything, you find the really disparities that's going on as far as how people treat you. And when I got to some of the major companies that I worked for over my years, you see it even more so. And I started focusing more on, wait a minute, give them as much as you've given this individual and trying to make it as equal as possible. So, with many of the other companies that I've worked with, Compass Group North America, Elior, Revolution Foods, and Organic Life, it's seeing what those disparities are and trying to make a difference, which is why, from a consulting standpoint, now being able to go into those districts and find out what's most important to the students in the district in order to make sure everything is equal.
I don't think a lot of people, or even as a teacher, I'll say, I didn't really think about how much the food service could impact our children's lives. In my last two schools I was assigned to, all of my children got free lunch, no reduce. They all got breakfast. They all got lunch. And my challenge was always the junk they would bring from home that they had in their backpacks and trying to get that away from them. Of course, I had my own way, and I did. It's like, you get breakfast, you get lunch, I need you to eat healthy food. So as a classroom teacher, I could sort of do my own thing and confiscate things like hot Cheetos because they were not nutritious. And so I kid you not, I had at the bottom drawer of my file cabinet in my classroom was filled with hot Cheetos. But what I would do was every Friday we had this game, this behavior game I ran in my classroom. And if the class could behave all week long, but I think about some of the stuff that gets into our kids, where that comes from when, yes, nutritious meals may be provided at school, but there is a lack of knowledge, or there's a whole lot of marketing being done by my podcast. I can say this crap food that gets into children who don't know any better and their households. How do you think, or what's your perspective on the whole food service industry, but also food that gets into the type of food that gets into marginalized communities?
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, Dr. Berry. It's sad because, as you and I know now, we even post COVID, we can walk into a grocery store. Prices had went up, but you know what? They never went down. And
Yeah.
when you look at the state of food nowadays, the quality control, there is no quality control anymore. You see things on the shelf, and when now do we have to go and check the expiration date to make sure that they're not serving us something that's going to expire tomorrow that we thought was going to last a week? So imagine going into those school districts who is ordering food by the tons because they've negotiated a price with major companies like US Foods or Cisco, many of those companies who order in the tons of meals for school districts around the country ahead of time. But are you really getting the quality of food? Yeah, yes, they order a salad, but maybe there's a cucumber recall. Well, are they going to throw all those cucumbers away? Well, what's the date on it? Well, we can serve those, and it's like, wait a minute, you're kidding, So
So wait
it's
a minute.
sad.
Are you telling me that there is a chance, big chance, little chance, but a chance that what's being served to our children in schools under school lunch programs is unexpired, tainted, recalled, possibly food?
Yeah, because there's several things that go on behind the scenes. The Department of Defense gives free fresh fruit and vegetables to school districts when they apply for those grants. There's also commodities that are given to the district, ordered a year ahead, but they have to use those commodities within a certain period of time. But there's nobody on the district side that will say, okay, here's the commodities that's being delivered. Okay, let's go through and now let's check to make sure that they're not expired. We went to one when I was with my former company and went to a district, the commodities and their canned food and everything, but the date on them was from 2021. So you have to ask yourself, okay, it's sitting on the shelf, it can be used, but how long is the expiration date? If you see an expiration date, there's a reason that it's on it, you know? So
Yeah.
a lot of times, especially with the meat, even with meat, when, there is various varieties, as we know, when we go into restaurants of chicken, do
Mhm.
you get the white chicken? Do you get this kind of chicken? Well, in school districts, are you
Is it
getting
even
the,
chicken?
yeah, and which is why the kids call it mystery meat sometimes. But now we're urging a lot of the parents and teachers, like you were previously, to get more involved. Is, hey, you see it on Facebook, you see it on various pictures now. What is this? Would you let your child eat this? So it now goes back to the having the chef mentality and why we have to have our students when they're looking at their food. There's a reason why they separate their food, but hey, what is your meal size as far as with, your salads, your portion size as far as your vegetables? If you can get all the fresh fruit and vegetables that you can eat, why is it only just apples and oranges out? Where's the rest of the fruit that they can order? You know,
I'm gonna challenge you. Do you know what those seven are? Can you
not
tell us?
off not offhand, but we know the former running vice president with Kamala Harris, Tim, Minnesota is one of those.
Okay.
Most of it is in the Midwest states.
Okay.
I believe the USDA is trying to introduce that goes across the country in the next 2 years. But sadly, if that happens, it's taking money out of somebody's hands. And so
The companies. Yeah.
the political arms behind the scenes are fighting it. Sad to say, it's almost like healthcare. It's like, wait a minute,
It's money. Everything. It's always about the
money.
money, and it's not about the children.
Yeah. Yeah, because now it's, hey, well, if we do universal free breakfast and we do universal free lunch in school districts, well, I'm sorry, why can't we do that in prisons? Well, why can't we do that? You see how it all goes.
Wait a minute.
to the
Don't
next
they
level.
get free food in prison, or do they have to pay for it?
Oh no, there's companies that run prison food just like they do with school districts and everything else. And
Okay.
sad to say, prison food sometimes they have to meet a certain standard as well. And
Mhm.
while they got those time in prisons, what does one of the prisoners do? They'll sue the company. This is not healthy. Based on this, they got all that time to research everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. We're not going to go to prison reform today.
Right.
Outside, that is not my lane. But we are going to find out. We are going to find out which 7 states besides
Yes.
Minnesota have that universal free lunch, and we'll make sure that we put that either in the show notes or post to social media, because I think that's important for people to know. And then how do we, if you do not have universal free lunch in your state, I'm just going to venture a guess that's something that a governor or state legislature pushes for.
Yes, you're exactly right. Yep.
Again, the decades ago, back when I was in high school, we could leave campus, and it had nothing to do with how many credits you had. It's
Right.
just, it's lunchtime. You can go, just come back. Sometimes we did, sometimes we didn't. But within just a few blocks of where my high school was located, because I was on, South Side for us, but I was in a more low income, my high school was in a low income area. We had a Church's, a KFC, a Denny's, a Burger King, a McDonald's,
Yeah.
a Taco Bell, and a couple of mom and pop spots. So we all left campus. I never, not once in high school did I ever eat in the cafeteria. I don't know what they served in the cafeteria, because Church's had 99 cents. You could get a piece of chicken, a biscuit, and a soda.
Wow.
And that was a long time ago. It's probably $3.99 now. Not the most nutritious thing. And then my junior and senior year, I worked at the Burger King down the street, and we were always packed for lunch. Kids were
Right.
always coming in for lunch, because that's what kids wanted to eat. Now, I was in high school. I was, as many of us were, we weren't thinking about nutrition. And I think even when I was teaching at the high school, that they had made arrangements for carts or kiosks. So on campus, I don't know if they still have those, but we had, I think it was Pizza Hut, Taco Bell, and a couple other options where they had carts that came on campus, and kids were buying directly on campus from the places that they normally would have left campus to go eat.
Now they got those at the college and university level. Most of the school districts, they're not able to do that based upon the rights of that management company to refuse it. And they're like, well, wait a minute, we do catering, so they want that money for catering. Well, wait a minute, we can do this. We can have we'll make all the pizza and do those things as well. And like you said, sadly, it still goes back to how much money are they able to make? And look, the margins, Compass Group, there's a reason why they're doing, 28, $29 billion a year around the world. And, a lot of that educational part of the business outside of all the baseball fields and arenas around the country, that makes a significant amount of money. And it's guaranteed money from the federal government and our tax dollars. They get reimbursed for those things. So, the resources are there, even in the Black community. I think the whole opportunity for Blacks to access the food and resources they need, it's all there. Sometimes it's just educating where to find it.
Hey there, Equity Warriors. I want to take a quick moment to share something exciting with you. You know how passionate I am about equity in education, right? Well, I've created a special space, a safe space, where we can dive even deeper into these crucial topics. It's our Patreon channel, and I'd love for you to join me there. Here's why it's so awesome. As a Patreon subscriber, you'll get access to exclusive content that I will not share anywhere else. I'm talking additional insights, workshops like you would get in regular professional learning sessions, resources that can really amplify your impact in education. But it's more than just extra content. By subscribing, you are directly supporting our mission. You're helping to create more valuable discussions and resources that you've come to love. You're part of the change we're making in educational systems. And let me tell you, our Patreon community, it is something special. It's a place where passionate educators and advocates can come together, share ideas, and drive real change. So if you're ready to take your commitment to educational equity to the next level, I'd be thrilled to have you join me. Just head over to patreon.com/3E podcast. That's patreon.com/3E podcast. Remember, your support means the world to me, and it helps me continue this important work. Together, we can create the educational system all our students deserve. Thanks for considering, and now let's get back to the episode. Yeah. And I know you focused on, and that's your area, and something I talk about all the time is the Black community, but I'm going to venture a guess that the Latino community is not very different.
Right.
When it comes to, it's demographic shift. It's Black to brown, or it's brown to Black, but it's the same neighborhoods and the same opportunities or options for food.
Yeah. You're exactly right when it comes to that as well. Is, when it comes to the menus with some of the management companies, why are you not putting those type of varieties on the menu for Latinos as well as those of color, and making sure that culturally they're going to eat the food? Because there's some that, because of their religious reasons, they can't eat the food as well. So they go outside,
Yeah. Yeah. As one who does not eat pork or shellfish, I can definitely relate to that. So often that there's something in the food that cannot be eaten. I think I had a student who was a devout Muslim as a sixth grader, and there were so many times where she couldn't eat what was in the cafeteria. So I sort of made it a point to make sure that she always had a food, but also space in my classroom during lunchtime, where if there was something going on in the cafeteria, and it was just her and her siblings were the only ones that were in that whole school that were devout Muslims. And so it made it much more difficult for her, but to provide that space, and especially during Ramadan, where they're fasting all day long, and creating that space for her to not have to sit in the cafeteria watching everybody else and smell everybody else's food at a time when you can't eat. There's a lot that goes on about food in our schools that we don't always pay a lot of attention to.
Well, imagine, even with the reason why is the boards are electing the superintendent and the superintendent's administration. Usually the business office, the business manager, is overseeing the food service program, the transportation, the janitor, all of those programs. Yet there's nothing wrong with the parent asking, I'd like to have a quarterly report from the company that's running our food service program of what's new, what's going to be on the menu, what are we looking forward to this year? Because last year, just in the state of Illinois, with over 200 requests for proposals for food service coming out to bid, many companies are coming in there and they'll lowball the price. And it's like, wait a minute, if you've been operating our district for 5 years, how all of a sudden you dropping it by $250,000? So that means either one or two things. You're either cutting the program some way, shape, or form by labor or the food, or you've been ripping us off, so to speak, for the past 5 years,
Yeah.
Especially if food costs has gone up. It's like, wait a minute, something's not making sense. But those are where we educate when we come in. It's like, oh, here's a nutritionist, here's a former director, here's a former superintendent. What are you looking for when you come into this program? And now when we're able to uncover a lot of those cost savings to get the best of the best meals, everybody gets happy,
Let me ask you one question, then I want to go. Again, there's so many questions going through my head now.
Part one,
we talked about milk, chocolate milk, regular milk. I know they have low-fat milk, strawberry. What about kids who are lactose intolerant, as is the majority of Black and brown children?
Right. And great point on that as well. Most white milk or chocolate milk and strawberry milk, a lot of the management companies don't look at all those other companies just because they cost too much. And If you
So
can
we're
make,
literally poisoning children's bodies, when we know that, and I don't know what the percentage is, and if I need to look it up, I will. But Black, Brown, Latino, and Asian children in particular have a much higher incidence of lactose intolerance than white children. White
right.
Europeans are the ones who domesticated cows and drank that milk. So they're okay with that.
Hmm.
Rest of us wasn't drinking that stuff.
No.
And yet we are giving children only one option, and that is milk, basically milk or water. And in some places you can't trust the water unless it's bottled.
That's the other thing.
So drink the poison or go without anything.
Yeah. Yeah. And to your point, it's, they, a couple of years ago, many of the school districts, and particularly the state of Michigan, lay it in the water.
Yeah.
So most kids now, and it's like, it's undetectable in Black families or communities that experience poverty. They won't do it. I went into one, and having the facilities background as well. And it's like, wait a minute, this school is full of asbestos. Well, it would cost too much to get. You worried about the cost when you literally are making kids. And then imagine walking into, the foam type stuff that was on the sides in the cafeteria,
Yeah.
which would condense some of the noise, but that stuff was full of asbestos or the flooring. And if they polish the floor or if they remove it, it brings those particles up in the air.
Yep.
Now you're exposed to it. So it's so many things. And it's like, who's going to eat in an environment like that?
We wouldn't eat in a restaurant that we knew had asbestos floating in the air.
Absolutely. But
certainly not as educators and administrators or school board members. We're not going to do that to our bodies, but we're subjecting our children to be in that environment.
And when's the last time that like you said, is, hey, administration, when's the last time we had an inspection of our facility? Or everything looks great. Now, we're not talking about what's clean on the surface. What's behind the scenes,
Yeah.
Same thing with the food. It's like if they walked in, if they literally left our podcast and went to their district, and it's like, yeah, I'd like to meet with the food service director. Oh, salads over there. There's pasta over there. There's hamburgers. There's nuggets. They're going to always eat the hamburgers. They're going to eat the pizza, and they're going to eat the nuggets every time. But what are you introducing as far as other things is concerned, culturally, that you can introduce them to? The paninis and, many other things that they see in major restaurants. Or, why not have a meatless Monday and try it Tuesday instead of, like you said, many of the things they'll get, some will come there every day, Monday through Friday. They'll get nachos and pour melted cheese over it and call it a walking taco. And that's all they want. And it's like,
yeah. I think in junior high school, I ate more what we probably would call mystery meat burritos and hot dogs, because I would go through the snack bar line, not the school lunch line, because I could pay for my lunch. And at the end of the snack bar line, probably 29 days out of 30, there were a couple of guys working the line who didn't have money. And so they were hitting people up as they came through the line for their leftover change. So I think that there are ways now, especially with ID cards, that stigma is gone. Nobody's begging at the end. Well, I hope not. But if there's no cash handling, then that is gone.
Well, and
my goodness.
Hopefully they're trying to get away from the cash. Some still bring it, but it's like usually, and sad to say, there's where you look at the system as well. Around the holidays, hands get sticky. And so if you're not doing that audit and you're wondering why it's short here and short there, and if they've been working there a number of years, you can almost see the system working, in a bad way.
Just keep in mind that $2.1 million worth of chicken wings.
Oh my goodness. Exactly. Right here in Illinois.
There was something I wanted to tell my listeners before we started. And then I have one more question as we wrap. And that is that you may recognize Dennis's voice, because he is the voice of the introduction of the 3E podcast. So when I said it's taken me a while to get you on here, outside of being the voice that introduces the podcast and has done so for what is now going to be, I think, 119 episodes.
Wow.
Yeah, you are episode 119. So thank you for being the voice of the podcast. I've truly appreciated it.
Absolutely.
And for coming on the show as a guest. Last question, I promise. Last question. This is one that I ask every guest who comes, because we keep talking about food service, and I haven't had my oatmeal yet this morning, so I need to go. I need to go eat my steel cut oats that are sitting in the slow cooker.
Absolutely.
I ask every guest a question that really I stole from Dr. Angela Davis. She said, I am changing the things I cannot accept. So I asked guests, what is something that you cannot accept? And how can our listeners help support change in that area?
Yeah, I really appreciate that quote. And as I think about it from the standpoint of children is concerned, you and I may be able to go through life or a day and, you really can survive off of a spoonful of honey each day with water and get away with it. Yeah. But with children who don't know and just coming to school, maybe it's their first day at school, either from the pre-K all the way through 12th grade, what I can accept is every zip code in every community around this country that a student can't walk into a educational facility and get a nutritious, healthy meal, no matter what their background is, their economic situation, their skin color is. They should be able to experience food security in a healthy environment and enjoy what we are able to do today.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Dennis, thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Pleasure. And in the words of James Earl Jones, you've done a fantastic job,
You almost sound like him.
No, I'm that comes in, but we must go, or coming to America. Yeah. Like I said, James Earl Jones, I dearly miss that man. But
what an
I was
icon.
happy to have your introduction for your podcast and all the wonderful podcast shows that you have.
Thank you. Equity warriors out there, I encourage you to take some action in your own communities. Advocate for healthier school meal programs that prioritize equity and access for every child. And whether it's reaching out to your local school boards, as Dennis suggested, or supporting initiatives, or simply educating other people about the importance of nutrition in education, every effort, no matter how small, every effort counts. Together, we can create a brighter future for our children and making sure that every single student has the opportunity to thrive in the classroom because their bellies are full of good food. Now visit us at patreon.com/3E podcast for more resources. Again, Dennis is going to give us some more information to share. You don't have to pay to be a subscriber over there. That's where you get all the good stuff. And then continue the conversation on educational equity. Join me again next week. Next episode, I'll be sitting down with Christina Pipkin as part of my mission to elevate new and young voices. And then if you've got a question, a topic you'd like to have covered, or a special request, make sure you look down in the notes, find that link, and send me a text. I want to hear from you. And as always, don't worry about the things you cannot change. Change the things you can no longer accept. And that's a wrap for today's episode of the 3E Podcast. Now, here's how you can make a real difference. First, smash that subscribe button. It's free. It's easy. Just do it. Second, share the show with anyone you know who cares about education. And third, consider becoming a supporter of the show. Together, we're not just talking about change, we're making it happen. Make a donation today to be part of that mission and change, and I'll catch you next time.